Today we're going to be taking a quick look at the PowerGrade, Quick Project File, Transition Pack, and Audio Pack from NostalgiaGrade. First, let's start with the resolution. The resolution that I choose is 2880 by 2160, and the reason why I do that is that's a 4:3 aspect ratio, just like the old Handycams. Let's apply it to a few clips and show you how easy it is to use. Here's clip number 1. We're just going to either drag and drop, you can right click apply, there's a few ways we can add it to it. Now that it's over here, it's already looking pretty good, and there's really not too much that we need to do to it, but I'm going to run you through each node, what each node does, we'll do a few final tweaks, and then get on to the next clip. Our first node is the color space transform. This PowerGrade is designed to work with Rec. 709 footage, so if you're shooting in log and need to convert it over, this is where you'll do that. You're going to put in your input color space, input gamma, and then you're going to leave it at Rec. 709. On the output, we're going to leave it how it is, but if you want to change it, I would suggest going to something like a gamma 2.4 or a Rec. 709A. There's a lot of different ways to change your exposure, but to make it as simple as possible, I'm just going to go over into offset. I would say that it needs to come up a little bit. This footage was shot on a red Komodo in 6K, and there's no way you'd ever be able to tell that. This is pretty close to what I'd want out of this image. The next node is the effects node. Commonly, Handycams give you the option to select different effects in camera. A lot of these nodes were designed to mimic those effects. The first one is mosaic. This is an option that was within the camera and is matched exactly down to how many squares there were vertically and horizontally. A clip later on will be a bit more fitting for night vision, so we'll look at that a little bit later. The next is sepia. Next is negative, another option that was directly in camera. The next node is black and white. The next is thermal. The thermal look isn't a look that was typically found in these older cameras, but if you're doing a music video or want to get creative, I think this is a fun one to throw on. Lastly, black mixed with one other color. And to be able to change that color, all you do is you select the node, go to effects, select color, move it to whatever color you may want, hit OK, close out of your effects, and that's your look. We're going to toggle that off, exit compound node, and move on to the next thing. The next few are a bit technical and not necessarily anything we need to go over. We have a lens distortion because we would get a slight fisheye look with these older cameras, and so that's applied here. The next is camera shake, focusing on mainly the jitter up and down. Lastly, we have motion blur, and there's a good example of what it's actually doing to the motion a bit later, so I'll point that out when we get to it. Next we have highlights. We're going to turn that on so you can see it. This is a look that typically is applied to something that's like water shimmering, and you get that starburst look. As you can see, this isn't the best clip to show this off, but if you had some water that was shimmering, this is the node that you want to turn on. Okay, we're just about done with this one. Let's move on to the next and we'll apply it to a few. We'll go a bit quicker so that you can see it applied and how quick it can be applied. And then I'll talk about a few details along the way. Let's apply this PowerGrade. This clip was shot with a Canon R5. We're going to use the first node to get it to Rec. 709, and then we're going to tweak it to get the look that we want. This color space transform is already set up for Canon, so we don't need to do any tweaking here. We have an image that's no longer flat, so we can go in and do a few tweaks, and then we should be good to go. In the exposure tab is where I like to add a bit of contrast if it's needed. Typically it wouldn't be with the color space transform, but we're going to add it here. I don't think this clip needs any tint or temperature adjustment, so we're pretty much done with this one. Okay, on to the next one. Drag and drop. We're basically where we want to be. We're going to go to exposure, maybe bring that up just a little bit. I'd say our shadows could be pushed down a little bit, so we'll do that. Make sure we do that in our exposure tab. And that clip's done. Let's click before and after so you can see. Let's move on to the next clip so we can drag and drop. I'm noticing right away our exposure is a bit low, so we can bring that up a bit. If you're working with red footage or any footage that has metadata, I like to change that within the camera raw tab. So that's what we're going to do here. We have it brought up just a little bit. These cameras did a really good job of auto exposing for you, so get that exposure in the middle as best as you can, and the PowerGrade will do the rest. Okay, let's move on to the next clip. Drag and drop, and just like the other clips, we're basically done. Yes, you can change a few things if you'd like to. Just like that, we're all done with that clip. Let's move on to the next. Drag and drop. Here's that motion blur that I was talking about a bit earlier. We're going to toggle it off and on so you can see it. And what it's doing is giving you a double image so that it looks like it had incorrect motion blur, similar to these older cameras, even though you shot it correctly. Now let's finish applying the grade to this clip. I think it's a bit on the dark side, so I'm going to bring up our exposure a little bit. It's okay if we clip slightly in the highlights. An older camera would have done that. And I think we're done with this clip. This would be a perfect clip to add the night vision effect. We toggle that on, and then we can go back, change the exposure slightly, bring it up, and then we are good to go. Something I like to do is add zooms. Commonly, you'd have right at your pointer finger a way to zoom in and out, and so people will do that all the time with these older cameras. It's just as easy as adding a few keyframes in post. Let's keyframe one place, go forward slightly, zoom in to where you want that to end, and it's as easy as that. We're gonna hit play. Now we have a few clips with the applied PowerGrade. I'm going to show you a few of the transitions, audio pack sounds, and how I'd use them. I think an easy one to start off, just grab the blue screen. When you would watch your footage back and there wasn't anything on the screen, it would always be blue. We have a few different sounds over here. I think a few that might make sense is powering on, maybe inserting the tape. So let's use a few of those. Okay, so we have the powering on, inserting the tape. I'm going to line up this last sound with the transition between the two. Maybe we'll have a J cut with this audio coming in before the video. I think what makes the most sense at the end of this video would be some sort of fast forwarding or rewinding like you would after watching your footage. Let's add a couple more sound effects to wrap up this video. Since we are fast forwarding at the end of it, let's use that audio. Let's add one last sound effect, the zoom, where we added the zoom in the video. Here's that same footage in the project file that comes with the PowerGrade. In video track 8, 9, and 10, we have some text overlays. If you don't want those overlays, all you need to do is disable those tracks and then you'll no longer have them on there. If you want to change the date that's on here, select it, and over in your inspector tab, you can delete and add whatever you'd like. The time in the upper right hand corner is going to match wherever you're at on your timeline. In the audio track 1, there's an effect that compresses the audio slightly to mimic the old Handycam sound. If you don't like that, just move the audio from track 1 to track 2. Let's say you need to make a few adjustments to these clips. All you need to do is select the clip itself, go to the coloring tab, and adjust the exposure there. After making those tweaks, you should be ready to export your video. I can't wait to see nostalgic, Handycam-inspired videos you created with NostalgiaGrade. If you want to stay updated on future products, put your email in at the bottom of the website. Thanks again for following along and supporting us. We can't wait to see what you create.